Welcome to another Fear.Dead gaming production. Today I'm going to walk you through Molten Core. At the end of this video you will be able to navigate this 40-man raid safely and hopefully end up with some fancy new loot. While I know you're excited to learn those boss fights, I think it is equally as important to know the trash leading up to it. I'm going to cover some of the scariest trash mobs so you know how to navigate through it. The most dangerous trash encounters in Molten Core begin with the notorious lava packs, which are widely considered the raid killers of the lower tunnels. These packs consist of a lethal mix of firewalkers, flame guards, and lava reavers that require strict coordination. The firewalkers must be killed instantly because they shred the raid's fire resistance and follow up with massive fireballs, while warlocks must keep the lava reavers banished to prevent their devastating AoE stuns from locking down the healers. Equally frustrating are the core hound packs found near Magmadar's lair, which act as a mechanical puzzle for the raid. These 5 hounds must be killed within seconds of each other, or the survivors will simply resurrect their fallen packmates at full health, forcing the raid to restart the entire fight and quickly draining the healer's mana. On the individual level, the Ancient Core Hounds and Firelords present unique threats that can spiral out of control if ignored. Ancient Core Hounds use a variety of debilitating breaths, including a powerful stun and a casting speed debuff, requiring the tank to keep them turned away and the raid to stay alert for sudden threat shifts. Meanwhile, Firelords are dangerous because they summon lava spawns that will split and multiply indefinitely if not focused down immediately by ranged DPS. If the spawns aren't managed, the raid will eventually be overwhelmed by a sea of adds. Finally, the high-speed lava surgers act as the ultimate ninja pull threat, charging at the furthest player and knocking them into lava or adjacent packs, making it essential for the raid to fight them with their backs against a wall and keep a close eye on their patrol paths to avoid accidental wipes during boss encounters. The Lucifron encounter in Molten Core is a management-heavy fight that focuses on rapid dispelling and careful positioning. The battle begins with the boss and 2 Flame Waker Protector adds. The standard approach involves splitting them up, with the main tank holding Lucifron on one side, while off-tanks pull the adds away to avoid overlapping damage. The Protectors must be killed first, because they use Dominate Mind to mind control raid members, who must be immediately polymorphed by mages to prevent them from attacking the raid. Throughout the fight, Lucifron periodically casts 2 devastating debuffs: Lucifron's Curse, which doubles the cost of all abilities for 5 minutes, and Impending Doom, a magic effect that deals 2,000 shadow damage after 10 seconds. Success depends on the efficiency of your dispellers, as mages and druids must prioritize Remove Curse while priests and paladins focus on Dispel Magic or Cleanse to clear Impending Doom before it detonates. To simplify the fight, healers and ranged DPS should stand at maximum range approx, 40 yards to potentially stay outside the radius of these area of effect spells. Once the Protectors are down, the entire raid can focus fire on Lucifron to finish the encounter. The Magmadar encounter in Molten Core is a high-stakes battle that serves as a primary gear check for your raid's tanks, healers, and hunters. The fight revolves around managing his massive fire damage and frequent fear mechanics, beginning with a careful pull where the main tank must position Magmadar facing away from the raid to prevent his fire spit and lava breath from hitting anyone else. Throughout the encounter, the boss will frequently use Panic, an 8-second area of effect fear that can send your tank running into nearby lava or fire patches. To counter this, warriors should utilize Berserker Rage or have a Tremor Totem or Fear Ward active at all times. A critical mechanic for hunters is Magmadar's Frenzy, which significantly increases his attack speed and physical damage output. Hunters must use Tranquilizing Shot immediately whenever the boss emotes that he has gone into a frenzy, or the main tank will likely be overwhelmed by the sudden spike in damage. Meanwhile, the rest of the raid must stay vigilant of Lava Bomb, a ranged fire attack that leaves a damaging patch on the ground. Players must move out of these flames instantly to avoid death. Healers need to focus heavily on the tank while keeping an eye on the raid for chip damage from Magma Spit, ensuring that the high sustained fire damage doesn't lead to a slow attrition wipe. By maintaining a solid rotation of tranquilizing shots and keeping the tank stable through the fears, the raid can safely burn down the boss and claim his loot. The Gehennas encounter in Molten Core is primarily a test of your raid's ability to manage positioning and rapid decursing while dealing with 2 Flame Waker elite adds. The fight begins with a coordinated pull where the main tank secures Gehennas while off-tanks pull the 2 adds away to be focused down first if these adds use a localized stun and a physical cleave, making it vital for melee DPS to attack them from behind to avoid extra damage. Gehennas himself frequently casts Gehennas' Curse, a devastating debuff that reduces healing taken by 75% for 5 minutes, which must be the absolute priority for mages and druids to remove from the tanks and the rest of the raid immediately. In addition to the curse, Gehennas periodically calls down a rain of fire that deals significant fire damage to anyone standing within its radius, requiring all players, especially casters and healers, to stay mobile and move out of the flames instantly. He also targets random players with a Shadow Bolt that deals heavy single target damage, putting additional pressure on the healing team to keep the raid topped off. Success in this fight relies on the raid staying spread out to minimize the impact of the fire and ensuring that the tank's healing is never throttled by the curse for more than a few seconds. Once the two adds are dispatched and the decursing rotation is stable, the raid can safely burn down Gehennas while staying vigilant for any shifting fire patches on the ground. The Garr encounter in Molten Core is a complex management fight that relies heavily on crowd control and precise tanking to handle the boss alongside his 8 Firesworn adds. The battle begins with a high-stakes pull, where warlocks must immediately use Banish on as many adds as possible, while any remaining Firesworn are picked up by off-tanks to be kept away from the main raid group. Garr himself possesses an annoying anti-magic pulse that periodically dispels helpful buffs from all nearby players, meaning paladins and priests must stay vigilant in reapplying essential protections like Greater Blessings or Power Word shield throughout the fight. The most dangerous mechanic of the encounter is the Firesworn Eruption. Whenever an ad dies or Garr reaches low health, the Firesworn will explode, dealing massive physical damage and knocking back any players in the immediate vicinity. To mitigate this, the raid must focus down the ads one by one in a designated area away from the main healers, while the main tank keeps Garr positioned firmly to avoid being knocked into the banished targets or other trash packs. Furthermore, Garr's magma shackles will significantly slow the movement speed of the entire raid, making it difficult for players to reposition away from exploding ads, so swift movement and proactive positioning are key. Once the majority of the ads are either dead or safely banished, the raid can transition all damage to Garr, ensuring he is finished off before his own enrage-like mechanics or additional eruptions overwhelm the healing team. The Baron Geddon encounter in Molten Core is a chaotic dance that tests your raid's individual awareness and reaction time, specifically regarding positioning and debuff management. The fight begins with a careful pull to a cleared area, such as Garr's room or the service tunnel, where the main tank must hold Geddon steady while the rest of the raid spreads out in a wide circle to minimize the impact of his fire-based area of effect abilities. The most critical mechanic is Living Bomb, a debuff placed on a random player that causes them to explode after 8 seconds, dealing massive damage and knocking both the target and nearby allies high into the air. Any player targeted by the bomb must immediately run away from the raid group to a designated safe spot to explode alone, ensuring they don't wipe out the healers or the melee pile. Beyond the bomb, Baron Geddon periodically uses Inferno, a stationary pulsing AoE that deals escalating fire damage to everyone in melee range. All melee DPS must rapidly move out of this circle the moment the cast begins and wait for it to subside before re-engaging. Meanwhile, casters and healers must deal with Ignite Mana, a potent magic debuff that burns the target's mana and deals damage over time. This must be the top priority for priests and paladins to dispel, as a healer with no mana quickly leads to a dead tank. Finally, as the boss reaches low health, he will attempt to Armageddon, a long-cast self-destruct that deals lethal damage to anyone remaining in his vicinity. The entire raid must treat this as a soft enrage and either burn him down instantly or flee to a safe distance to avoid a total wipe. Success relies on every player being responsible for their own movement and ensuring that fire resistance gear is utilized to mitigate the constant aura damage. The Shazzrah encounter in Molten Core is a chaotic battle that serves as a major test for your raid's casters and dispellers, primarily focusing on managing his frequent teleportation and magic-based debuffs. The fight begins with Shazzrah positioned away from the main raid group to minimize the impact of his arcane explosion, a powerful area of effect attack that deals significant damage to anyone in close proximity. Throughout the encounter, Shazzrah will frequently use Gate, a short-range teleport that places him directly on top of a random raid member, often threatening your healers or ranged DPS. The main tank must be extremely reactive, immediately moving to taunt the boss and reposition him away from the vulnerable cloth wearers. Success depends heavily on the speed of your priests and paladins, as Shazzrah periodically casts Shazzrah's Curse, which increases the magical damage taken by the entire raid by 100% for 5 minutes. This must be the absolute priority for decursing, as an unmitigated arcane explosion, while the curse is active, can easily result in a one-shot for most players. Additionally, Shazzrah regularly grants himself a magic grounding buff that reduces all incoming magic damage by 50%, requiring priests to use Dispel Magic or Showmans to use Purge instantly to ensure the DPS phase remains efficient. Casters must also be wary of Counterspell, a targeted silence that interrupts casting for 10 seconds, making it vital to time your spells carefully or wait for the boss to finish his internal cooldowns. By maintaining a spread out formation to limit the number of people hit by teleports and ensuring the curse is cleared within seconds, your raid can safely whittle down Shazzrah while protecting the backline from his sudden bursts of arcane power. The Sulfuron Harbinger encounter in Molten Core is a high-intensity coordination test that centers almost entirely on interrupt rotations and target management across 5 separate enemies. The fight begins with Sulfuron and his 4 Flamemaker Priest adds, all of whom possess the ability to cast Dark Mending, a powerful heal that can restore significant health to any of their allies if left unchecked. To manage this, the standard strategy involves utilizing multiple off-tanks to pull the 4 priests away from Sulfuron and from each other, ensuring that their healing spells can be easily identified and interrupted by assigned rogues and warriors. The raid should focus all damage on the adds one by one, utilizing a strict kick or pummel rotation to ensure that no Dark Mending casts are successful, as even a single heal can drastically extend the fight and drain the healer's mana. While the adds are being systematically eliminated, the main tank must keep Sulfuron Harbinger positioned away from the raid to mitigate the impact of his demoralizing shout and physical cleaves. Sulfuron periodically casts Hand of Ragnaros, a targeted fire explosion that deals heavy damage and knocks back nearby players, making it vital for the raid to stay spread out and for healers to quickly top off anyone caught in the blast. Furthermore, both the boss and his guards will use Shadow Word, Pain, and Immolate, creating a constant stream of damage over time that priests and paladins must proactively dispel or cleanse. Success in this encounter relies on the discipline of the melee DPS and stopping every single heal cast by the priests. Once the 4 adds are dead, the raid can safely transition all damage to Sulfuron, who becomes a relatively straightforward tank and spank fight until he's defeated. The Golemagg, the Incinerator encounter in Molten Core is a high-intensity gear check that tests your raid's raw healing throughput and tank coordination while managing a constant aura of fire damage. The fight begins with Golemagg and his 2 core Rager guards, which cannot be killed traditionally because they will simply revive at full health as long as Golemagg is alive. Therefore, the standard strategy involves 2 off-tanks pulling the dogs far away from the boss to prevent them from buffing Golemagg with their Mangle ability. The main tank must hold Golemagg steady while dealing with Magma Splash, a stacking armor reduction and damage over time debuff that eventually necessitates a tank swap or extremely heavy healing as the stacks climb. Throughout the battle, the entire raid must contend with Golemagg's Trust Aura, which deals periodic fire damage to anyone in melee range, making it vital for your healers to maintain a consistent rotation of area of effect heals on the melee pile. Golemagg periodically targets random mana users with Earthquake, a physical damage attack that also interrupts spellcasting, requiring casters to stay alert and healers to quickly top off those hit by the tremors. As the boss reaches 10% health, he enters a frenzied state called Earthen Power, significantly increasing his physical damage and attack speed while constantly pulsing fire damage to the entire raid. During this final execute phase, all DPS must burn their cooldowns to finish the boss as quickly as possible, while the off-tanks must stay vigilant to ensure the core ragers do not break loose and wreak havoc on the healers before Golemagg falls. The Majordomo Executus encounter in Molten Core is a unique challenge that requires precise crowd control and target management, as the goal is not to kill the boss himself, but to defeat his 8 Flamewalker guards until he surrenders. The fight begins with a high pressure pull where mages must immediately polymorph the 4 Flamemaker healers while the main tank picks up Majordomo and the off tanks secure the 4 Flamewalker elites. The standard strategy involves focusing down the 4 elites one by one, while keeping the healers strictly sheeped. However, the raid must be highly reactive to the boss's 2 rotating shields. A purple magic reflection shield that can kill casters who don't stop DPS, and a yellow damage reflection shield that deals physical damage back to melee attackers. As the battle progresses and the elites fall, the mages must maintain a perfect polymorph rotation because the healers become immune to crowd control once only 4 guards remain total. At this stage, the raid transitions to killing the healers while managing Majordomo's teleport ability, which randomly drops a player into the center of a burning coal pit, requiring healers to quickly top them off before they succumb to fire damage. It is vital for the raid to stay spread out to minimize the impact of the guard's fire blast and shadow-based area of effect spells, while the tanks must keep the boss and remaining guards positioned away from the caster pile. Once the final guard is defeated, Majordomo Executus will end the encounter and submit, leaving behind a cache of loot that includes the essential items needed to summon Ragnaros. The Ragnaros encounter in Molten Core is the ultimate test of a raid's coordination, positioning, and fire resistance, requiring a perfect balance between high DPS and survival mechanics. The fight begins with a precise spread formation where the raid forms a wide circle around the central lava pool to minimize the impact of Wrath of Ragnaros, a powerful knockback that targets random players in melee range and can send them flying into the surrounding lava. Your main tank must have exceptionally high fire resistance to mitigate the constant magma blast and fire-based melee hits, while healers must maintain a steady rotation to keep the tank topped off during the heavy physical damage. Throughout the first phase, Ragnaros periodically uses Hand of Ragnaros, an area of effect knockback for anyone nearby, making it vital for melee DPS to time our movements and for ranged casters to stay at maximum distance to avoid being interrupted or killed by the blast. If the raid cannot defeat Ragnaros within 3 minutes, he will submerge, triggering a high-pressure transition phase where 8 Sons of Flame emerge from the lava. These adds deal significant fire damage and possess a mana-burning aura, meaning your raid must quickly group them up to be stunned and destroyed by area of effect damage while your casters stay clear of their reach. Once the Suns are defeated or another 90 seconds pass, Ragnaros resurfaces, requiring the raid to immediately resume their spread positions to avoid a total wipe from overlapping fire damage. Success in this final encounter relies heavily on every player managing their own threat level to prevent Ragnaros from turning toward the casters, as well as utilizing greater fire protection potions to absorb the constant environmental damage. By perfecting the transition between phases and maintaining high damage output during his stationary periods, the raid can finally extinguish the Fire Lord and complete the Molten Core. And that is it. You have now mastered the Molten Core and are ready to go get some amazing loot while being safe doing so. I appreciate you watching and look forward to seeing you on the next one. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get those notifications of all my new videos focused around World of Warcraft Hardcore. See you on the next one.